Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Grateful Not Greedy podcast. My name is Kris, and I'm here with my very light co-host in every iteration of the word. And her name is
Rachel. Hello, everybody.
Rachel, and I are here. We're back. Rach, I have been thinking about some of the things that are going on in my very little life over here. And I'm hoping that you can help me today because I would like to digest with you the amount of stress that I am feeling. And um, I think everyone, okay, this is actually, I just said that. I think everyone's feeling kind of stress. I shouldn't take that too big, but I think a lot of people are feeling stress just in the world order. So we have this heaviness on the world side, right? And then we have all our microcosms that are already stressful. So I would just like to focus on the little things that are creeping around for me and kind of how we can move through it. And I know that you're not immune to the stress bomb of life. And I know that none of us is because you just don't know when it's coming. So let me just kind of give you a little background and then you can find a fill in here. So I always think that I'm not that crazy of a person. In my head, I think I'm not a crazy maker. Let's just say that's not my jam. I am not, some people just like to make I'm not a crazy maker. I am a whirling dervish. So let's distinguish those two, right? I am a whirling dervish. So sometimes the whirling dervish part of me ends up being crazy making, obviously unintentionally, but it nonetheless is just as distressing. So I thankfully was able to go get a haircut this week. And I was talking to her and I was just like, oh my gosh. She's like, how are you doing? And of course, that's the only time when you can really unload for hairdressers. It's like with your stylist. And I was like, okay, I would like to tell you that everything's great. I'm fine. And but you see me every, 3, 4, 6 weeks, like you know the trajectory of my life. So I was like, I said, honestly, I had so much stress this week, Rach, that I couldn't even unhinge my back. And I haven't been in that state for I don't even remember. And I've had some really stressful things go on like over the course of my life. So I'm like, what is going on that I can't even like pull the layers of my like muscle tightening over themselves to get rid of this stress? And am I just in like constant adrenalized mood? Is my, all my hormones are just like stress, 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 stress. So I'm just like activated the entire time. And maybe even when I'm sleeping, I'm not even sleeping. So I'm trying to even just analyze a little bit and look at like, oh, what's going on? I can understand if I just found out that one of my parents was diagnosed with cancer or, one of my kids was ill or, having a difficult time and then I'm taking that on. But I haven't actually had any very specific thing. But the stress for me comes in all the little creep of all the various jobs I have and all the responsibilities I have because I'm a whirling dervish. So I have a little bit of skills in a lot of areas. So for instance, this week I'm reading some legal documents for some contracts that my husband needs to sign. And why do I need to be the one looking over those? Because he has attorneys. Right? So I'm doing that. I am working on my rental property. Again, it's the gift that keeps on giving. I'm working on that and working on the leases and all the inventory list and everything for that. I have a little thing going in the background with this party that I'm planning for next week to have some girlfriends over, which is not even that overwhelming, but like that's going on in the background. I have to renew my driver's license, which I started to do, but then I got like the kibosh on it because the website had a crash kind of thing. They're like, oh, we're having difficulties. I'm like, oh, great. So then, you put it back in the hopper. So I have that going on. And then I have, my charting that I'm trying to do because I'm still, I'm a working nurse. So I'm still doing that. So I still like have to do my charting and that kind of gets on you. And one of the things that I want to tell you, and you can then help me, help you, help all of us, is why is it that the stress ends up being another stressor? So I'm like so stressed out. I'm all these things going on. None of them, even if they're getting completed, I told like other friend, I'm like, I'm just going to call it my stress list. I'm not even going to call it my to-do list anymore. I'm just going to call it my stress list. And then maybe by taking some things off of that, I can feel like I'm less stressed because all it is a stress list. But then when I have my stress list, even when I'm doing that, I'm like, I'm stressed and I'm stressed because I feel like, oh shoot, I can't do anything else and I can't go on a paddleboard and I can't go to a movie and I can't go to that work. Even, when you're stressed out about going to work out because you feel like, oh, I need to get all this stuff done, but going to work out is exactly what you need, which is what I did this morning. I did do that. So help me out, weigh in with what you have going on and in general, but let's just start to tackle this big grateful not greedy conversation of stress and not shame each other into being like, "Oh, well, you really shouldn't be stressed about that, Kris. Oh, you should learn to relax." The worst thing that someone could say when you're stressed out is like, "Oh, just relax. Take it easy. No worries." You're like, "Really? No worries for you?" That's great. That's awesome. So glad you feel that way. So, what do you got?
I hear you on the stress side. I feel like 2026 entered with just like this like full force of like, oh my gosh, there was not like a gentle entry.
That's true. I agree
And
with you.
there's this almost it feels like an urgency that I can't put my finger on that is like this underlining
Maybe
tone.
that's it.
And it might
Yeah.
be kind of like out there in general with like the world and everything else, but I can feel it. It's actually like I
Mhm.
can feel it in my body, and this is like part of that intuition
Yeah.
that I want to be in touch with. But then it brings in the stuff that I'm like, oh. So I
Yeah.
think part of that is just that general feeling for me right now. And then the other piece of it is like I look at my list, which I didn't think was big, and then it just kind of grew in ways that I hadn't anticipated and couldn't have planned for, right? That's the other
Yeah.
part is you're like, you can
That's the
handle
other
your
part. Fire, fire,
daily
fire.
stress. Yeah, you can
Yes.
handle your daily stress, your daily like because you've brought that on. But what
Mhm.
messes it up is when these things that end up being dumped onto your plate or thrown onto your plate that you had no anticipation for, you're like, oh wait, my plate is only so big and there's
Yes.
no other plate to dish it out on, right? Like
No,
there's not
that's the
someone else.
that's the problem. Yes.
Yeah.
I have no
There's
one
not
else's
someone
plate that I can
else.
put it on. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then it just feels like you're looking at this plate, like you've been to an all you can eat buffet, and you've taken way too much on your plate, and you're
You're like,
like,
"Who the hell put that on my plate?
I
I
know,
hate
you're like,
chicken fried
"There's no
rice."
way I'm gonna be able to eat all this. What was I thinking?" Moment, and your stress or my stress piles on there going, "Oh my gosh, there's no way." And as soon as I think I do something, like, on that stress list, which I like that you're calling it a stress list because it creates stress,
Stress
the
list.
actual list itself, I realize that doing that one thing then creates like a trickle down of, like, more things to do in some cases. So, and to your point of like this conversation is just the amount of things that are sitting on there create stress. It's not even the
Yes.
actual items themselves.
Correct.
And so for
Yes.
me, the conversation is like, what am I getting from that? Like, why am I creating that in my mindset? How can I
Mhm.
undo some of that pattern of this all sits on me and it has to get done now. How can I undo some of that so I can give myself a little bit of space? Because I know I perform better when I'm less stressed. Because part of
Yeah.
that is like to
Totally.
what you said, you're like, you're not even sure if you're sleeping that well because that stress level comes through in the sleep. So
Yeah.
if I can try and unravel some of that there, that is helpful to me because I tell myself, um, there's no emergencies, no one's dying, right? Like, I literally say
Yeah.
that,
Yes.
um, because that is a reminder that sometimes I bring the stress on that doesn't match what the list is, right?
Mhm.
So, it
Mhm.
feels
Yeah.
just because of the
Yep.
volume of it, but
Right.
realistically, it doesn't match, like, the yes, it's a long list, and it feels, like, sometimes impossible, especially because there's no other plate to put it on, like,
Right.
um, but then the other piece that is, the question of, but, like, is this like, no one's dying here, there's no emergencies here, and so now how can I
Except
look at
maybe
this
me.
list
But okay.
a little differently? I mean, they
Yeah.
are urgent. I'm not saying they're not urgent. Some of them are urgent and need to be done in a specific time frame. So that urgency, but an emergency is like, do you need to go to the emergency room right now?
Mhm.
That kind of emergency. So, for me, that's how I try and kind of like notch down that level of stress a little bit so I can then take a moment and like really look at the big full plate and decide like, okay, what do I want to do with this now that I have a full plate?
Right.
Because the overwhelm just gets overwhelming.
Well, yeah, okay, so here's the thing. So I'm sitting there with my hairstylist, and I'm there for, like, what, an hour? I mean, like, not even a lot of time. It's like bang, 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 and she's chilling. She has I think this is an important part to put out too. I mean, I'm not like, "Oh, poor me," but it's if you have 1 kid, it's different from 4. If you
Yeah.
have if you live alone and you have a cat, that's different than living with a whole bunch of people and 2 dogs and, a turtle. It's just different. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I'm just saying, then you're able to add different kinds of demands on with your work or whatnot. So anyway, so she's chilling, love her. And, she asked me and to your point, she has said something like, why do you work so hard? Why do you work so hard? And I was like, do I? I mean, I know I work hard, but like, am I working hard because I'm doing that to myself? Or like what you were saying, am I working hard because everyone's dumping on me and I'm like the last woman standing down at the end of the pit and I'm trying to throw back up all the dirt that's, getting like thrown down on me? And is it that? Is, my whirling dervish aspect of my personality, is that what gets me into trouble with all this stuff? And what I'm noticing this week though, Rach, and that's why I wanted to talk about it today somewhat urgently, is just to offload some of it because the the physical aspect that I'm feeling this week is unusual. It's really like when I talk about like the tightness in my back, and I'm going to PT for my shoulder. That's another thing, right? I've got my shoulder injury, so I have to add in my PT once or twice a week. I've had these little mini vacation business trips to add into it that have different weather and different, challenges. And then you come back and then you have a reentry cycle. So that's probably part of it too, is we don't we don't account for even when you're going to go on do a weekend away or something, you come back, there's that reentry, static that is not it's not nothing, it's not like you're just chilling. And I am super guilty. One of the things that I'm always so impressed with, again, talking about my European friends or any of my friends that are chill, is how they can just have plans, like, for the weekend. Like, they're gonna go like I said, like, they're gonna go paddleboarding, or they're gonna go out on the boat, or they're gonna take a hike, or they're gonna do all this stuff, and half the time, I'm, like, doing laundry, or I'm doing some of my massive amounts of paperwork that I have to keep up with, or I'm, doing my books, or I'm going to see a patient, or I'm filling the time, right? So let's kinda digest that because I I think there's an answer in here somewhere with how do you deal with it, and I you have good ways too because you're a yogi of interrupting the cycle, and I'm a nurse, so between the 2 of us, we should be able to find just some physical things too without, dumping into every self-help book there is. But you do get into these hormonal cycles of stress where the stress hormones are just coming at you, your adrenaline spiking, your little adrenal glands are like, "I'm running out of juice." They're like, "I can't give you any more." And then, you're not sleeping, so you're not getting the restoration. You can't even take a nap because it's just kind of overwhelming you. Or you fall into the kind of the crap out mode when you really just it's freeze. Your
Yeah.
system is like, "I'm shutting you down. You're done here," because it's just you overload your mind so much. One of the things I was asking a friend of mine, I have a skylight calendar, which I don't know if anyone knows what that is, changed my life. And the skylight calendar, I think they advertise on wherever the heck, probably all over Instagram or whatnot. I got mine at Costco. I don't again, they're not sponsoring this podcast, although they should. I'll call them right after because I've told like 10 people to buy one of these things. So the skylight calendar sits on I have this little console as I leave my house out the garage because I don't have a mudroom or anything. I just have like a little vestibule kind of thing. So as I leave the house, the skylight calendar sits there. And on the skylight calendar, I have merged my work calendar, my personal calendar, the Google calendar that keeps all my kids' stuff, maybe my husband's stuff, it's just different stuff. So I can look quickly, and then it has some little lists that you can do, like a grocery list and whatnot. So I was asking my friend, I was like, I need a system where I can keep track very well of all the things that I have to do on my stress list because my stress list, you know, a long time ago, we've all done these different time management things. I've been in time management seminars since I'm literally not even joke. It's like since I'm 17. My mom sent me before I went to college. So, and there you learn like to prioritize. Is it an A, a B, or a C? Is it a 1, a 2, or a 3? Well, that's really great. That also takes time, BT Debs. So I'm like, I just want something where I can put it in. As I'm putting it in, there's like a 30-second window. There's a 2-minute window or 5 minutes or less. And then there's the 30-minute task. And then there's the whatever task. And then what happens is my driver's license isn't expired for a couple months, but I can't let it go. Like I can't, like I have to make the appointment. I have to get over there. I have to do stuff. But that just sits in me because if I don't get my driver's license renewed, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Maybe if I were more chill, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. I feel like it's a big deal. I feel like I should keep that. I shouldn't let that go. So flesh out a lot of that because there's so much related to your physical capacity. And what scares me now in the point where I am now is I've kind of gone over that hump where now to get back to the chill part on the top of the mountain and just like, float up there is difficult because now I'm uphill and then I have to talk myself out of it. I have to, go work out. I have to do all these things to be able to come back clean. So I don't want to be at this point. I want to be at the points before, but there's sometimes when you just have so many things thrown at you at once that you don't have control over. Like we've talked about this a bunch of times, I don't have control over a lot of the stuff that comes at me. But maybe I do because I could just say like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do it. And that's going to stress me out
Yeah.
though, Rach, because
Okay.
I'm not that person. I
I
can't do
know.
that. So that's going to stress me out
Well,
too.
you just said that you're not that person. Like you don't
I'm
let
not
the
that
things
person.
go. Like you
No.
don't just be like, yep. Psh." And maybe there's something there for you too, to be like, that's not going on my plate. I really don't want that. That's not for me. Someone else has to take that. And I know that there's not someone sitting next to you that you can dump it onto, but I don't know, it got there somehow, return to sender. I'm not sure how to get it back there, but that piece of because you're capable and able, it ends up on your plate. And so maybe part of it is make yourself less able to do it.
Well,
Um,
normally I do. I mean, in fairness, like normally I do because those of us who are good at, reasonably good at a lot of little things, like I've had like 14 industry jobs in different, I
Yeah.
can do law stuff, I can do medical stuff, I can do, whatever stuff, workout stuff. Okay. So normally I do. And that's what I'm saying. I think this is a good example for me to look at because this is not a situation where I can say that I've taken on so much. Now I'm doing the school carnival and it has a definite ending point and I just am really stressed right now. This was like a super creep because it's just a lot of little things and I think it is part of reentry. It's part of maybe even who I'm around, like, I just can't I'm like, "Why am I so, like, so stressed out?" So, if my Skylight calendar can help me, because my friend said it can, she sent me the whole thing, she's like, "You're gonna love this. You can do some little app and add it to your Skylight calendar," because something as simple as that, Rach, when I can walk out of my when I walk out of my house into the car, I just it's next to our powder bath or whatever, I'm passing by there all the time, and I can visually see different colors on a calendar and different stuff that's going on. I can see like, oh, my kid's over there. My son's like their college classes are on there. My daughter's tennis is on there. My other son has his little, trips on there. Everything's there in one little spot in colors and ways that I can kind of take it in. So maybe I even need to evaluate that. But I think I think my question to you, like, is twofold. It's like, how do I to your point, like, how do I keep from getting here without just saying, "Don't take on too much." I get that. But also, there's probably intermediate steps. And then once you're there and you're screwed, then then what do you do other than, take a bunch of pain pills and call it a day, right? It's like it's a
yeah,
lot.
it's
It's a lot.
overwhelmed.
And I'm in it right now, so it's a good time to have this conversation and kind of bring in everyone into the story because I would imagine a lot of us can relate. Whether you're going through it, you're in it right this minute, or you're gonna be in it next week, or you were just there 2 weeks ago, everyone seems to circle around this evolution of stress.
Yeah. I think you hit on there's so many things to pull on here, in this conversation because one of the things that stuck out for me is like, what is that happening because of your environment, like around people, around
Mm,
things, around creating that
yeah.
kind of, I mean, you even said like the world is like a little bit more like intense right now, right? So
Yes.
there's part of
Yeah.
that we don't have control over that piece, but we do have control of how we respond, how we react to it. And the
This is a really
reaction
good point. We could just stop on that one just for a second because that's one of the things that I say always and often is I can't save India. So the reason I say I can't save India is because one, I literally can't, if that because there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of things that go on. I can't save India. But I say that to myself because there are so many situations. Like when you walk by like a stray dog, right, on the street and you walk by, you see a stray dog or you're someplace where there's just a lot of them and you can't adopt all those dogs and you can't feed all those dogs and you can't it's really like there's nothing you can do per se. And by example, people can call that whatever they want. That's when I use the mantra, "I can't save India." And it's my way of releasing my empath nervous system from holding on to that responsibility or holding on to that control or holding on to that, "I'm the one person in the world who could possibly, solve this problem." So I say, "I can't save India." And that's even when you're dealing with the world stuff, yes, you can go do whatever. I don't watch the news as a general rule. I don't watch the news because there's not a lot I can do. I try to curate my news, and I try to curate it, and then I give it out to the world so that other people can also take it off of my plate because I can't just absorb it all, right? And I'm not equipped to do that. So yeah, so that's the one point because the environment, I think you're right that it's a worth noting, I think, is just to say
it
like
is.
what's going
It
on for
is.
you
I mean,
personally in your environment. There's the environment and there's like what are you making out of it? Yeah.
right. And if you look at this from like big to small, the big is the environment, that big area
Yeah.
that is like you're in it, it's surrounding you, around you. And the question is, okay, so um your reaction versus your response. Your reaction is that immediate, and then your
Yeah.
response is, well, now that you get to sit in it, what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to show up for it or not show up for it? And that's part of it, right? And you live in a place that's probably has a higher, like we were just talking about this, our stress levels, our ability to handle,
Yes.
like our baseline stress levels are very different. I live in a
Totally.
small town on a island in the most remote chain of islands in the world. So my stress baseline norm is very different than yours. And so
Let me
just
just add to that too, because it's not even like Hawaii. Like, we were just recently in Pittsburgh, where we're very familiar with this town. We used to live there. And we're back there for 4 days or whatever. And, we're on the plane home. And I just said, like, I cannot believe. And by the way, we're in Pittsburgh on the coldest ever daytime record low, Rach, negative
like,
11, the coldest ever
wow.
recorded. We were out rocking around, whatever. Like, you're in this freezing cold place, right? But we're doing some fun stuff and here and there. But I really just I could not believe how chill I was. And that's exactly what I said. You're bringing up so many good points because I said it's such easy living. Like my
Mhm.
nervous system is not on overdrive when I'm in
Yeah.
Pittsburgh. Granted, I wasn't working, I was doing some lecture stuff with Jay, but I wasn't working, right? So uh yeah, I mean it's you have that part of it too, but it's not like it is in Southern California, right?
Right.
Yes, yes,
It brings
yeah,
in it seeps in, like, and especially knowing you, knowing the empath ways you are, like, how much,
yeah,
like, things seep into you, that is probably a big piece of it, and when it starts to come in, it's almost like it, like, punctures little holes, and then more seeps in, and more seeps in, and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, it's now everywhere." Right?
yeah,
And travel lets us step out of it, lets us step out of our daily commitments, daily activities. And then when you step back in, you're not only stepping back into the list that you had when you left, but all the stuff that piled up when you left. So, like, to your
yes,
point, when you're a point of like re-entry, my re-entry into here, like you gotta like give yourself that time. That's partly because you've come back to the list that you had when you left, plus all the other things that got piled onto your plate while you were gone that you didn't even ask for and you didn't plan for.
right,
So you've de-stressed, you've gone somewhere different where you could unplug and where life is slower. I don't, and you got to
Yeah.
appreciate that, notice that. Then you drop back into this place that has a higher baseline than where you were and definitely where I live.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
all the things that your life that is a full, big, beautiful life, all the things on there. And that, of course, creates that cycle in our bodies, or I've been in that cycle before of like the stress creates stress. The stress
Yes.
breeds more
I get
stress.
stressed about the stress. Yeah.
And you're like
Yeah.
on a hamster wheel and you're like, how do I get, and then you're like, maybe if I run faster, I'll finally get off the wheel. And you're like, that doesn't,
Right.
I'm just running faster. And so I think to your point, you said, like, re-entry. What is your re-entry like? Like, did you really give yourself a re-entry, or did
Oh, and
it come in, like
I'm even evaluating when you're talking about it. I'm like, well, I wonder if if when I re-enter and you re-enter, if we did the same trip or whatever, I wonder if your reentry is smoother simply because you live in Hawaii. And when enter, you don't have, or is our reentry the same, but then you just don't have this, you have that your baseline is more chill than my, like, I'm never going to get to the, not never, let's be positive here. Yes, I am going to some point. But we all have those little, okay. All right, let me break this down too. Another thing that I did on my little trip was, ironically enough, now that we're having this conversation, is I am reading this book called Permission to Rest. And this book is amazing. Like, it's such a good book. I don't even know who the author is because I'm probably about halfway through it. And she's, a therapist and all this kind of stuff. She has all these credentials. But really what she's talking about is how, even though the little micro, it's not about just getting better sleep. She said you can't just get better sleep and then hope it goes away. Like what you were saying, like you just get little pieces and little pieces, that you have to give yourself opportunities to rest little bits during the day, whether that's like, having a cup of coffee, taking in the sunset, taking a little walk, getting some fresh air, any of those little things help your nervous system so that when you are sleeping, that actual rest is restorative and not
Mhm.
fitful. Right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
even in the context of coming into my reentry, I'm reading this beautiful book and I'm all ready to settle into my permission to rest. And I get home and I'm like, whoa, like what is going on? And it could just be like what you're talking about, just even a shock to the system. It's just so important. You're bringing up so many points that I hadn't considered in terms of paying attention from the bigger external picture, which is like the outside world, because there's just a lot of stuff going on right now. And if you're someone who's paying attention or cares about certain things, or, I'm kind of putting together with some other information I'm putting together, it's just kind of I feel like that's a lot. But even if you could offload that, right, then the next thing is your own to do list, which is horrifying and, enough. And then the other thing is like the stress upon the stress, being stressed about the fact that you're stressed, being stressed about the fact that you're stressed and you can't just go get a workout, being stressed about the fact that you're stressed and you can't just, whatever, sit and chill for a minute, or, you want to get to the office. I couldn't even get that done because I'm, worried about getting this stuff done. So yeah, I think the hamster wheel thing is appropriate for sure.
It is. And for for me, sometimes when I get super stressed, like, and I was definitely in this place actually this week. Yeah. That I felt like because I had giving myself some space, everything kind of piled up and I had a lot sitting there.
Oh,
And so then the question was, okay, like what has to get done? And what do I need to do to like alleviate some of this? But it was starting to feel
right.
like overwhelm, right? And
Yeah.
I took the day and got picked the things that I knew I could get done that day that would, and some of them weren't like as critical as other, but I'm like, I know I can get this off the list. Like, and I
Right.
literally, I had
Yeah.
to write a list, 'cause that night the night before when I was going to sleep, my head was going through this thing, and I was like, "I gotta write these down so I can get them out of my head so I can lay down." And I don't care if you put them in a notepad on your phone with check boxes or like the Post-it note. I mean, I think I did both. And and I put them down, and I knew the next day, like, okay, I can get these things done, and that will feel like I've made some progress. Because for me, if I feel like I am moving forward, even crawling, even just crawling, kind
Yes.
of moving forward, I feel better. When I feel like I am
Right.
not moving forward, it creates stress in me. And unless it's by choice, unless it's like the other last week, I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a day, go to the beach, just take care of myself. And it created a little bit of a pileup, but I made that clear, and I just said, that's it. I'm going to cut things off, and this is going to be my time from this time till midnight. I'm not going to do anything else. And there you go. And so the uh, making the time for that, of like nothing on your list, and then making the day for the list, is kind of my approach, actually. Is like, I have to have both. I can't have the day
I
that I'm
love this
kind of doing,
actually. Yeah, this is like a
kind of
good
not.
balance. Yeah, yeah. No, it's
And
actually this is such a cool way to look at it. So it just to piggyback on your dumping the stuff because that's a common thing, right? That all the experts tell us, right? Write it down, have it there, put it to the side or whatever. And in her book, she talks about in her earlier training, one of her therapists or someone told her to have just make a God box, God box, right? So you can call it whatever you want, whatever you have, like a fun box or a fairy box, whoever takes your troubles away, name it that. So in your fairy box, so she had a God box, and the whole idea of that was the troubles that you have, because this is the creep, right? So the what seems like the overt issue is that you have a to-do list, but in reality, as we're having this conversation, the creep is the overriding troubles that add to the stress in a way that you can't even just put some perspective on your stress list or your to-do list, because you've got this bigger mound of stuff that's kind of weighing on you. And now that I'm reflecting, I'm like, that's probably what's going on. I probably have these bigger constitution things that are like weighing on me, that I could set out my God box and say, like, okay, I'm gonna have to name it to tame it, right? But I have to like figure out a way to say, what is that really? And can I put that in my God box? And once you put it in your God box, then it's like, give it up to the universe. Let the universe handle it.
yeah.
It's not for you to deal with. It's not for you to control. It's not for you to save India, for instance. So that's a good concept. And your larger point here about like big to small is really hitting me now, because that's kind of like the grateful not greedy part for me, as I'm like listening to you and thinking. The greedy part is, of course, I want nothing on my to-do list, obviously, duh. Do we have I want nothing on my to-do list. I want to be chill all the time. I want to just be like super zen. I want to be like all those people, all those great teachers on TV that not TV anymore, wherever they are, podcasts and stuff that tell you, oh, you could just be, equanimity, and you're just like one, and you just, okay. But that stresses me out, Rach, because that stresses me out. So, okay, can't really necessarily do that. But but if I can at least just appreciate that when I'm feeling like super overwhelmed, like I am this week, obviously we can understand that we have work deadlines and all that. But really, if you look at it, there are very few times in your life when you have more than you've ever had before. Like more than you've ever. I can think, when my son was diagnosed with leukemia, I can think in that moment, I have had very few things that had encountered me the same way. And even that, Rachel, wasn't as stressful, because I know I have a plan. I know my role in that. I know how to deal with crisis. I'm great in crisis. Fantastic. That is like really my sweet spot. And then same thing, when my mom died when I was very young, you have that, like, that's super stressful. You understand that, obviously, because it's something that's you can definitely put your finger on it. But when it's something that's like kind of like you're saying, that's big, but it kind of keeps attacking you until maybe you address it, or until maybe you understand it, or until maybe you let it go. Because I can't be greedy, that I don't want to be ever stressed. I don't want to have nothing, don't want to have, I want zero on my stress list. I want to have every tool known to woman and man and anybody that is capable of helping me solve all these problems that, by the way, aren't going away. I'm just going to get new ones tomorrow. Which ones do I want to have?
Yeah.
Yeah, that the greed is it, the expectation that something's wrong here. And truthfully, the perspective shift is this is normal. This is stuff that happens. And the abnormal part, to your great insight, is my response and my reaction that is probably not based on, as we've said before, it's not based on what's happening right now in front of me.
Yeah.
It's probably not actually based on that document that I had to read, that legal document that I had to review, the charts that I have to get done, the driver's license that I have to renew, the insurance payment that I had to make, the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's probably not based on that, because I can, even though those things are a lot, they're all manageable. I know how to do those, right? I know how to execute. So then it's just a matter of executing. So there's got to be something larger at play.
And to your point about stress, is it's gonna always be there. Like it's it's
Yeah.
kind of a factor, especially in the life that you're living and the environment that you're living. It's going to be a factor. And so the question is how can you respond to it differently and internalize it differently and create
Yes.
boundaries with stress. It's like creating a boundary. You have a relationship with stress. How do you create the boundary with your
Yes.
relationship with stress? And how do you
I
want
love
it
it.
to go? Like, what does it feel like? What does it look like when your list gets long? Like, if ideally, how you could handle that? Like, when things blow up, when, you get, bombed with like 6 things, like, how would you want to do it? And it's almost like thinking, if you could play with it a little bit and think forward of it, of like, we taught that one about dream big. Like, what if stress dreams? Like, how would I want to handle stress? How would it feel? What would it look like? And how would
Yes.
I still accomplish and be the person that I want to show up as the mom, as the partner, as the businesswoman, as? How can I do that and still support myself without overloading my system?
Yeah.
And what does that look like? Because I realize I try to remove as much stress out of my world, but it still comes in. I still have stresses. I still am
Yes.
like trying to raise a teenage kid. I'm still like trying to do it all. I'm still, all of those things. But I am also really, and it's not that I don't get hit, I get caught on the hamster wheel too. It's not that I don't have those things. It's just like, how can I better respond and react to them? Respond to
Hmm.
them. And when I get in this, then I like always Monday I had this day like a fury, like you saw the whirling dervish. I'm thinking of like the Tasmanian devil. Like that's
Totally.
me right now. And Monday
Oh
was that
yeah.
day that I was just like, I'm in, like, don't get in my way. Like my friend's like, hey, you want to meet me and pick up? And I was like, nope, I don't have time. Today is all about getting stuff done. Like I was just like, I do not have room for this conversation. And it was good, and I didn't get as much done, but I got enough done that I felt like, okay, this is I can do this. And that's the other piece that is interesting about the stress when our list gets long. To your point, you have done so much before in such
Oh
more
yeah.
challenging situations, and
Hmm.
this in front of you is not that it's no big deal, but it is totally within your wheelhouse. Totally.
Oh yeah. For sure.
So,
Yep.
why do we bring stress
And your
on about
point
it?
about like the stakes aren't high, I can do these
No
charts,
one's
I
dying.
can pay these
Right.
bills. No one's died yet. I can
No one's died, period. No one's dying. Like, everything's
no
fine.
one's died. I can yeah, but I could, and even that's part of life, right? So it's like
Totally.
that's going to happen. That's all part
Totally.
of the perspective, is that stuff is gonna happen and you're gonna have to deal with it and kind of put it where it belongs. I'm really like picking up though this piece that for me, and I don't it's there's a couple things going on for me. One is what you said about being responsible for what you're taking on. I think that's really, I feel like I have fairly decent boundaries with that. But that also brings up my point. We've talked about this before, where it's like if you're in a situation where everyone's giving you stuff, you have to go to one of those people or your boss, whoever, and say, "Hey, how do you want me to prioritize this?" And in
Right.
that case, that's being true to yourself. When all that stuff's coming at me, I have an opportunity to say, "Hey, so sorry, I am not able to look at this legal document or to read through this lease right now, or to, because we create that sense of urgency, like all of this has to be done right now." And I think why that's a hard time for me is because I can't necessarily believe that tomorrow I'm going to have more time, or in 3 days I'm going to have my schedule's going to open up and I'm going to be able to do that.
Mm,
So I'm kind of always front loading because I
mm,
know that there's going to be surprises coming at me literally every single day. There's a new to-do surprise. So if I'm going to have that, then that creates for me the urgency to get it done now, because also, I don't know, maybe I'm going to get sick. Maybe someone close to me is going to get sick and I'm going to take care of them. There's all that other stuff, which is like the anxiety and the piece that you put on yourself, right? Because it's not living in the now. Because in the now, in the
definitely.
present is, oh, I have this list. Maybe it'll get done, maybe it won't, but in the now I have this list. That's fact. That's it. That's all that it is. It's my stress list. Okay. But then when I add to it, like, oh, what if I can't get that done in time? Like, how am I going to do all this? This is impossible. Like, that's not necessarily problem solving. And it's certainly not kind to myself. It's not, if I were sitting there with one of my kids and they were telling me all their woes, I would say, like, oh, hey, well, can you tell the professor that you're going to get that in a couple days later? Can
Yeah.
you talk to so and so and say you can't do all these things right now? Can they hold off an extra few days to get that thing done from you, or whatever, whatever? But when it's you, I just don't give myself that kind of grace. I just don't. It's just greed, greed, greed all day long. I want this list done. I want no stress about it. And I still want to be able to go to
Yeah.
my exercise class, and I want to be able to walk the dogs. I still want to be able to go to work, like all these
Yeah.
things, but you can't do, anything, but not everything, right? So yeah, it just
Isn't that
keeps
interesting
to
that
it's
you won't give yourself that, like, that you give it to other people's, but you won't give it to
yeah,
yourself? And,
totally,
and that,
completely.
to your point, though, here's the thing that, here's something I've been working on is, like, the looking forward, like, the possibilities of the stress that's coming down or the things that are coming down. That worry is a bill that might not ever be due. So, it is something that you
Yeah,
don't need
yes.
to take on yet because that bill is not in front of you. And I I try to stay, like, to your point, in the present, in the now, instead of projecting forward all the things that are probably gonna pop up in the next 6, 12, 18 months, right? There's a lot in front of me, and I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
nope. I have no idea what that's gonna be like at that point." And I also will be a little bit of a different person, a different person by then, and I don't know, my circumstances might change.
Mhm.
So, I being able to project out and worry about that is, creates unnecessary stress in my world. And I really
Mhm.
look at it because I love, like, for me, like, doing numbers and understanding things, like, understanding it's a bill that might never be due. Like, I don't need to pay it because it's not even here, and it might never even come. It might never even I might not even be charged for it, like, all of those things that I'm like, if that's how I approached financing and my budget, like, I would be a mess. But I don't approach it that way. I
I was gonna
approach it in
say,
a
like, I
way.
can't I can't even get my head around the words that you're saying. I'm like, "What is it, a bill that, hires if it's a bill, it's a bill, it's sitting in front of," like, that's the fact. The fact is I have a bill in front of me, right?
You
I'm
do
just
have
one
a
of those
bill in
people,
front of
again,
you.
just like you. I can't not pay it.
Right, and the bill's in front of you, decide, like, when are their due dates? Just like any other bill you might have, like, when is this due date? And if it's late, was there a
Yeah,
penalty? And really, what
yeah.
is the penalty? And it's like, okay, let's treat these like our bills. And then the
Mhm,
ones that you're worried about that might come tomorrow or the next day, they're not here yet, and you don't even need to think about them because they might not come. Who knows?
mhm.
So the piece about, like,
Right.
if you're trying to look at your to-dos, your, bills that are due, look at them in a way of like, okay, what do I need? Like, what bills are the most important ones to pay? And that too. Like when you're paying bills, I'm always like, oh yeah, get the mortgage done, get like that done.
Totally.
Like you have a
Completely.
priority. You have a priority there.
Absolutely.
And what if
Definitely.
like and the other thing is I would imagine that you don't stress so much about the bills because you know that you have the ability, have the money to pay them. And I would say your to-do list is the same thing
Well,
as
and
your
I use
bills.
Wine App. We've talked about this before. That's right. I have my budgeting app.
Yeah,
So all my money already has a job. It's already taken care of. So it's,
exactly.
yes, you're going to
And
pay
so
this,
what
and here's your money to
happens
do that, and here you go. Yeah. Yeah.
what happens if your to-do list is like paying bills, right? Like, and that's what you're trying to find
Mhm.
is that app or that way to kind of have it to know like, okay, my time. And I do block out time for like, okay, I need to do studio stuff. Okay, I need to do this. Okay, and I try to block out time like Wednesdays is my day to get this stuff done. Like these random things around the house, these random because I am home because I teach in the morning and the evening. So I have this weird gap in the middle. And I'm like, great, let's use that time just for that. Just for these like things,
Right,
tidying up,
right.
putting things away, like all of that. And I know that that time is there, so I don't
Yeah.
stress about it, and I know that I'll get to it then. So you have the ability to kind of like schedule and look at those things as like big chunks of time that you can dedicate to your stress list to feel like you're
It's my
making
stress
some
list. Yeah.
progress. And
Well, and, along with that though too, what is not on my stress list is which I could totally put it on my stress list and call whatever I want, but I and this book is really important, this permission to rest.
Mm,
Permission to rest, right? We don't put on our to-do list, certainly as I don't think most of us as Americans do this. We don't put on our to-do list like this is the 10 minutes you're gonna relax. We don't put
mhm.
like relax, take a break, you could take a nap, pet the dogs. We don't put that stuff on our list. It either happens or it doesn't, but it's not, I mean, in workouts, I think people maybe they schedule that and that kind of stuff. But we don't put in like all the mini breaks. And she was very specific
Sure.
about how important those mini breaks are to, allow because you can't even they even talk about when I was in nursing school, so much of the data on studying is you can't just ride your brain for 12 hours and think that you're gonna be smarter. You can't not pull an all-nighter before an exam and think that you're gonna do well because the processing is so important, and I didn't even literally learn this until nursing school, how important it is for your brain to have time to "recover," quote unquote,
Mhm. 'Cause it's a
from
workout.
all the work that you've given it all day long, right? So even if you're gonna sit down and say like, "Okay, I'm gonna work on this podcast," for instance, if I'm gonna do some editing things or I'm gonna, put up some posts or I'm gonna compile some videos, whatever it is, that's taxing work for your brain. And I need to remember that I need to then give my brain a break. Where's my brain break? Where's my body break?
Right.
Where is the time that's the download for that? So we talk about reentry as like a big thing if you go on a vacation or something like that, and then you come back and you have reentry, like you're saying, all that stuff that's built up. But we have mini buildups all day long
We
with
do.
just the stress that comes, at us. And then we get in our car and we're listening to more podcasts and we're listening to more inputs and inputs and inputs. And
Yeah.
really what we could be doing is just listening to, instrumental music or
You're
to,
right.
to something that just allows our nervous system to calm the heck down because we are taxing it and taxing it and taxing it. So rather than even looking for like, my go-to is, I think you are the same, your go-to is kind of like analysis. My go-to is where the efficiencies, where can I find some efficiencies here? And rather than doing that, it's how am I going to build in almost the inefficiencies, which
Mm,
are efficient, to allow me to get more done. It's
yeah.
I'm going to take a break. I'm gonna put that on my stress list, which is, now or tell Alexa, set an hour timer so I know when an hour has gone by and I haven't left my bottom has not left that seat to do any little break, any little, just look at the birds outside, listen to some music for 5 minutes, somehow get a reset, and, she was very specific about how important those mini resets are, and
Yeah.
that when we talk about our to-do list, we have to equally talk about our not to-do list,
Yeah.
our brain break list. And that probably now that we're even having that conversation just scientifically is probably so much of my current exhaustion because I
Yeah.
haven't built in, I was just so constricted and I'm so worried about the constriction. I'm like, do I take more Advil? Do I do more stretching? Do I, get to my PT? Do I ask them to do more? Like what do I do? And then none of that's working. So then I just kinda keep plowing forward, and really, it's probably the time to pull it back, you know?
Yeah. And to your, what you said about what you learned in nursing school about your brain and how you can't like cram like it needs to absorb, it needs to process. And the other side of that too is that it's like when we work our body when we work out. We know, like, when we go work out and you lift heavy stuff and the next day you are sore, you shouldn't be working those muscles. They need to recover. You're not going to
Right.
get the results
Yeah.
you want if you go work them out again. You need to let them recover fully and they're not sore, and then you go work them out again. And it's the same idea. Our brain functions that way. Like, our bodies, we need a break too. Like, we all need recovery. And we have the idea of recovery in physical
Recovery.
activity,
Mhm.
but we don't have recovery in our
Yeah.
daily world and our stresses and all of these places that allow us to recover, to get back to our baseline, whatever that baseline is in California or Hawaii, whatever that
Yeah.
baseline is, to then go
Right.
back in and play the game again. Because can you imagine, like, a soccer player going out and have to be in the game the whole time? Like, there's no way they can be in the game the whole running, running,
Exactly.
running, running, running,
No,
running, running, running,
hold
right?
I mean, Rach, we're huge hockey fans over here. If you're like on the ice for a minute, there's a guy on the ice last night or whatever. He was on the ice for 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and the commentators were going crazy. They're like, he's so gassed. There's no way he can stay out there. He needs a break. Like he needs a change, because they change players so often to do the different lines. And now that you're saying that, it's like, well, of course, of course. And those of us who are hard drivers that's just we don't even realize that we've been on the
No.
ice for 2 minutes and 38 seconds. We just
You
don't
didn't
even
even
realize
realize you're
it because there's no
gassed.
coach there telling us to get the heck off. There's no commentator, like, in the booth going, "Oh my god, she's so gassed. She needs to get out of here," right?
Yeah.
Such a good analogy to be able to think about it like that because it's so true. They don't do that in sports. And even an
No.
endurance athlete is not going to go to the same level the entire time. You have to
No.
pace yourself differently, do what you can, however it works. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think when it especially when it feels like the stress is creating more stress, I think that's our bodies telling us
Yeah.
that we have to get off the ice. Like, we have to sit down, we have to take
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
break, and the question is, at that point, it's like, it might not be 10 minutes. You might have to be out of the rest of the game that day, right? And get back in the game the next day,
Right.
and
That's so good.
yourself
Such a good
that
point. Yeah.
give yourself that space to have that. Like, when you give yourself that 10-minute break or rest of the day break, actually give yourself that break. Don't
Ah,
be like, ah, man, I got all these things. Like, be able to be like, write it down, unplug it, however you can do that to move it aside so you can actually get the break you need. So when you are back on the ice or you are back in the game, you're ready to go, that you're fueled up, that you are rested, that you are ready to, like, fight the next battle, or the next pile of stuff that's on your plate, right? You're hungry for it.
yeah. It's just
And,
not going away. It's not
no.
going away, and, it's you talk about this a lot too about, how you're teaching your kids or, your friends or how whatever your example is in life and how you're trying to emulate something, to be able to give them examples, and I am always telling my kids, "You need to rest. You need to take more rest. You need to take a nap. Don't go out until this time, whatever."
Yeah.
If you're out so late and they're like, "Oh, I slept till 10." I'm like, "Of course you did. You need to rest." I don't say you need to get out of bed. Like,
No.
crack. I don't say like you need, nap for wimps. No, I say, you really need to rest because I understand all that in real life. And I don't tell myself, "Oh, you really need to maybe, Chris, the stress, like what can we do in the meantime?" Like, yeah, I somehow have to give my body the signal one that it's okay, right? So and that's part of the getting that stress down is you have to give your mind has to give your body the signal that it's okay, but your body is really in charge, right? So it's like
Mhm.
your body can be, calming down and letting the muscles relax and all that, and then your mind gets the message. Oh,
Yeah.
no, this is our signal to stop. We don't have to keep driving. I need to get off the ice for, a few minutes or the
Yeah.
game, like you're saying. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think so. It's monitoring your environment because this is our ice time, right? So it's monitoring
Right.
your environment. How long have you been in that environment? What else are you bringing? Like, how loud are those fans who are screaming at you if you're the goalie who just missed the shot or whatever? And how much of that are you taking in? In our case, whether your greed is world events or understanding everything that's going on in your neighborhood and making sure that you're at every town meeting or whatever you've got going on that's your big driver that will certainly create stress. How are you managing those inputs in that environmental conversation? And then, yeah, and then how are you able to build in those mini breaks to also to allow yourself to, when you are going to actually sleep, when you are going to in fact rest, it's restful because it needs to be restorative. You need to give yourself the opportunity to restore, because I know I'm sure I've had agitated sleep, even if I'm not an insomniac. You know that it's not good because you wake up the next morning and you're not necessarily rested. You're still agitated. Like I'm still, pumping adrenaline and yeah, stress hormones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I bet your resting
Yeah.
heart rate is
That's
up right now.
super helpful.
Like, I bet if you monitor it at night, your resting heart rate is
Totally.
elevated, and
Oh,
I can
for
tell that.
sure.
Like, I have track my resting heart rate and my HRV, and just to see and to understand, like, what my recovery is, and not necessarily because I wanna perform, like, because it's also gives me, like, if I did not have a good night's rest, if my HRV is up and my resting heart rate's up, I know that day I have less fuel. I just have less fuel. And
Right. Yeah, exactly.
it has nothing to do with, like, "Oh, I still gotta go to the gym and do this and do that and, like, and do these 100 things." I'm gonna be like, "Okay, today is not the day to do all these things. Today is the day to do the bare minimum
Right.
because I
Right.
don't have a full tank of gas
Yeah.
right now," and give myself permission for that. Because even if I said, "No, I'm gonna still go through it, I'm still gonna push hard," you know what? It's not gonna give me the results I want. It's really not. Because
No.
I'm gonna run out of
No.
gas,
It's
right?
not.
Like, it just is, like, it's not possible, and to that point, like, yes, it's probably possible, I've pushed through many hard things, but it's not needed at this point, and to give yourself, recovery, like we were talking about that recovery time, and actually have it be recovery time.
Mhm.
Um, and, uh,
Yeah.
and at the very beginning, you said, like, you have these friends that, like, really schedule the time to, like, go for a paddleboard, go on the boat, whatever. And you're like, how do they find time? You know what? They probably have just as
How
little
do they
time as you
do
do,
that?
but they just are like, nope, this is
Totally.
immovable. This is one of those ones that's immovable, and I'm gonna leave that there, and I'm gonna do
Yeah,
it
they've grown
anyways.
up just with their family, like we talk about a lot, that your family culture was that
Yeah,
you play on the weekends, you don't
yeah,
work all the way through. My family culture was not that. So, just kind of retraining yourself even in those examples, that you don't have to work 24/7, you don't have to work all the way through every single weekend. You don't have to, you don't have to, you don't have to. And to your point, you're not even gonna lose that much of anything that you think you're gaining, and but you're not gonna gain that much more because you're getting stuff done all the time.
sure.
And, if it's the laundry or if it's your presidential speech, those you could just decide how are those gonna get done. And I think it's important to recognize. I often another little thing I say as we're like closing out, thinking about our takeaways is like I'm not the Secretary of State. Or I'll tell other people, "You're not the Secretary of State." No one's expecting you, 1, to knock it out of the park, 2, to even be at that meeting, 3, to
Right.
change your whole life and your whole schedule to make sure that you accommodate that or you get that done and to that level or something like that. And truthfully, if we think about it like that, if you are the Secretary of State, guess what you have? Lots and lots and lots of aides. Lots of them, right? And so the reason that you aren't the Secretary of State, I don't know why you're not the Secretary of State. If that's what you want to do, go for it. But you find that even as you reach these elevated levels of work, that one of the great things that happens is that yes, you have all your stress, but all the lower tasks, a lot of those can be delegated. And I think that's what I started this whole conversation to say is I'm not able to delegate a lot of my tasks. So maybe that is I need to be more important, Rach. You to get a more important job. Um,
Mm,
or I need just to recognize that I need to give I need to give credence where it's owing to, right? So paying a bill, charting, these are all basic tasks. These are not
yeah.
Secretary of State speaking in front of the UN kind of tasks. These are basic tasks, and I can't give the level of stress that or the level of importance to assign to things like that are even en masse because of course they all accumulate, and then that I justify almost that I have all this stress because it's all that accumulated. But really when you break them all down, none of them is any more important than getting my oil changed. right? Like, that would be the most critical thing that I would possibly have is like, "Oh, I need to get my oil changed," but I don't even have to do that because I drive an electric car, right? So it's like, the grateful
Yeah.
thing is there are a lot of things that are not on my list, and there's a lot of ways that I can downgrade the importance or the stress that I give to these various items as though they matter. And I will say too, even my girlfriend hairstylist, she's like, "Oh, she's like, why do you work so hard?" And I was like, "Well, this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah." And then she said, "Oh, well, are you a perfectionist?" And I said, "No, I am not." And I am not. We've had this conversation on this podcast 100 times. I'm B plus, B plus, B plus, better done than good, like get as far as you can and then move on. So I know it doesn't come from that. It comes from a perspective, a need to give accurate perspective on these things, not be greedy, that I'm never gonna be stressed. I'm never gonna have a to-do list. I'm going to be able to like lollygag through life like a nice spoiled 4-year-old. That would be amazing, right? I think that's what we're all kind of wondering why we're not a bunch of spoiled 4-year-olds, right? Because that would be
Yeah.
great. And everything's just like taken care of for you. And here's your lunch and here's your this and here's your that. Would you like to? Would you like to? How about we? And that's not how it shows up for you. So then it's being responsible. I think I can really take away from this just understanding that there's environmental pressures that I'm
Yes.
not aware of, understanding that I might have been on the ice too long, whether that's 2 minutes or 30 seconds, understanding that my break from the ice might be 30 seconds or 30 minutes or 3 days, whatever that is, and really leaning into the perspective on the stress list that just because people are telling me that there's all this stuff I have to do, because I have a lot of people who tell me, like, "Have you done this? Have you done that? Did you look at that? Did you look at that? Where are you with this thing?" And just remembering that their emergency isn't mine. If it is, I can take it. I can decide what I wanna do, and then just being good about prioritizing my respites
Mhm.
in so that I can be continually, being a successful person as a person, that I'm actually able to function well because we all know that how I'm showing up for people is also directly related to how stressed I am or how much stress I'm putting on myself or am I allowing to come my way,
Sure.
and there are examples of people in the world who don't stress themselves out. So I can look for some of those people too.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, um, the idea was like, what is my baseline stress? So I know what that is. Like, where is my baseline of like what gets it higher, what gets it lower, and where do I normally sit? So I can have like that perspective of it and kind of pay more attention to it. Not to the point where it's like boiling over, like you put a pot on the stove and it's like boiling over. You're like, oh my gosh. And you're like, well, I
Yeah.
could have like actually noticed when the first bubble came up. And I think that would be helpful for me. And then the other piece is the recovery. And I kind of thought, I mean, I knew this as we were talking about. I'm like, yeah, I do this, but now I'm going to mindfully do it of that recovery of like, we say like grateful, not greedy. And I'm like, I shouldn't be greedy about my recovery. Like
Yeah.
my recovery
Mhm.
should be just as
Mhm.
important as my task list. My recovery and my time and those types of things should be the other things shouldn't trump them. And this goes back to our conversation about self-love, right? Because you wouldn't expect that of anyone in your world, your kids, your loved ones, like you wouldn't expect that of them, but we expect it of ourselves. And I was like, I am still trying to hold myself to the same level that I would do for the people I love around me. And if I can do that, I know I will treat myself better. I know I will get in a place of that stress isn't a dominating feature, like a dominating like environment for me to be in and prioritize the me part of that, not just the to-do list, right? The day to
Yeah.
day. So I think that's for me, those are my takeaways.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think even balancing, we talked about fun, we've talked about all these other things, right? So it's like, well, where's the fun if all this stress stuff is happening, and can we set up some, oh, this is my respite. This is whether that's fun. I'm gonna bake some cookies here. I'm gonna do some this, that, and we have to have opportunities for all of those. So this has been fun, Rach. Appreciate you so much. And this has been, is, and forever will be the Grateful Not Greedy Stressless podcast. Aloha, Rach.
Aloha, Chris.